Well, we're ready to start the 3 o'clock session. For this whole session area is called historical. And the first talk is by Lisa Thompson and Alan Bucknam, titled Oral Histories of Miners from the Purgatiore Valley. Lisa Thompson is the NEPA and Section 105 specialist at the Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety in the Inactive Mine Reclamation Program. She has worked there for 12 years, completing National Environmental Policy Act requirements, conducting cultural resource surveys, and managing various historic preservation projects and contracts for the program. Alan Bucknam has been working as a designer, photographer, and video storyteller with environmental and human service-related organizations for over 20 years. He runs Notch Code Creative from Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and works across the country with governmental and private organizations. And I'm going to add in here that he has been a huge assistance to us on this conference with all the designs and everything. That's not on his bio, but I have to add that. So take it away, guys.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I hope you all are enjoying the conference thus far. We're happy to have you all here. I am Lisa Thompson with the Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, the NEPA and Section 106 specialist, as well as project manager.
And I'm Alan Bucknam of Notch Code Creative Services, working with the division on lots of outreach projects, including this one.
Like most of you here, we work with abandoned mine lands at the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. We address hazards and environmental problems, associated with our abandoned mine lands. We work through SMACRA, so we work on mine properties that operated prior to 1977, like a lot of you in this room. Some different projects that we do, we work with hard rock, of course, and coal. We also have 38 mine fires currently in Colorado that we are working on continuously. We do water quality projects as well as a few historic stabilization projects, such as this photo here. This is the Mayflower Mill near Telluride.
All right, a little about Notch Code. Notch Code is a design and outreach consultancy that focuses on projects that work towards serving the common good. Let me just make sure I have this right here. Let's see. We specialize in a range of areas that include graphic design, in print, online, and environmental design, video storytelling, such as this one, brand identities, and Habs Hair Howls photography, both large and medium format work for both federal and state level standards and organizations. Let's see, okay. So in this case study of oral histories from the Purgatiore Valley, which is near Trinidad, Colorado, southern Colorado, northern New Mexico, we just think it's important to share those stories and experiences and perspectives of past miners and their families from around the valley who have knowledge of the area and be able to share their stories and work with them.
We learned that it's DRMS is very interested in preserving miners' oral histories, and let's see. But we also learned that there's not currently a platform for doing so. So we kind of had to create one or figure one out, and it took a very long time to figure this out. About 10 years. So been working on one for quite a while. And we'll kind of go from there. We also learned it's very important to have a third-party technical and storytelling expert is very best for creating a final product. It just provides a lot more options of what we can do with our final interview footage. We want to make it accessible to many people, the general public, as well as our partners that we partnered with in order to do this. We didn't want to just shelve have them, on external hard drives and just on a shelf somewhere. We want to make sure we can do something with this information. It's also very important to know that a lot of work goes into this project, lots of planning and executing, just such as selecting a good videographer and an interviewer, the person who's going to do the interviews to help capture all of these stories. It also takes a lot of editing after you do an hour-long interview to cut it down to the 5-minute interviews that we do. Okay, so who was this project about? I partnered with a group called the Latino History Project and the Southern Colorado Coal Miners Museum and Notch Code Creative, Alan. And so what did we do in this project? We wanted to capture the voices of past miners and their families in the Purgatiore Valley through these interviews, which are very long videos that can be used as for history research. When did we do the project? We started it in December of 2018, and we had a contract to complete the work in April of 2019. The interviews were done August. We got the final edited documentaries from Alan in February, and then we wrapped it up and we did a little calendar at the end with the information that we received from the interviews. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the timeline that we ended up doing this in once we finally got the ball rolling. So where did we do these interviews, this project? The interview conversations actually were done down south in the Southern Colorado Coal Miners Museum. And then our actual interviews that are on the external hard drives are housed in my office right now, just on an external hard drive. So why did we do this project? Well, one of our past DRMS directors, Loretta Pineda, which some of you might actually know, she actually had a really good passion for documenting these miner stories before they're lost. Likely, they will never be heard any other way. However, it's really hard to get a project like this started on our own. I was trying to figure out if there was kind of a platform that already existed that I could help and use or partner with in that way that maybe somebody else is already doing this. Well, I couldn't find anybody. So kind of had to start from scratch and figure out how to do this. So how do we do this? It's all about contacts and who you know, and just word of mouth really is how it finally ended up happening. You talk to enough people of, in same interests and it'll all kind of come together. So we were actually referred by the State Historical Fund. The Latino History Project, a lady from there contacted me because a lady at the State Historical Fund had given her my name. So we just kind of looked for some similar things that we were interested in and decided, I think we can do this oral history project together. And so that's how it finally ended up happening. And then we, shortly thereafter, got under contract with Alan Bucknam. And I'll have him tell you a little bit more about the nit and gritty of how it actually went down.
Okay, so once Lisa and the Latino History Project approached us about creating these short documentaries, we realized we needed to talk a little bit to them about how these services break down into pre-production, production, and post-production. Having a good pre-production process is really essential to creating an effective final documentary. The research prepares us to ask the right questions, set up relevant shooting locations, and make contacts with the right people. Working with all the project stakeholders right up front to formulate lines of inquiry for questions is really important. So one thing I'd recommend if you're thinking about a project like this is don't skimp on preparation time. Scouting locations and interviewing the interviewer to develop a rapport and a sense of how they will interact with subjects is really important as well. Now, production for this particular project was fairly straightforward. We were able to schedule all the interviews over 2 consecutive days in one central location at the Southern Colorado Coal Miners Museum. Some considerations to think about is that scope, schedule, and budget always kind of drive and rely on each other. Budget and schedule in this case can have a big impact on production, impacting everything from shooting schedules, how many cameras to use, what sort of personnel you're going to have, the audio quality, all kinds of stuff. We produced this on a relatively lean budget considering the number of interviews and just using a couple of people to shoot it. When we finished the interviews, we went into post-production, and that included creating both a polished, unabridged version for the like half-hour long versions, and a 2 to 4 minute version of each interview. So these unabridged versions, as Lisa said, they provide historians and researchers with deeper, more granular information and context about the area, while the shorter versions are made with more of a general audience in mind. We did a couple rounds of editing before we produced a finished piece. Both versions required adjusting sound, color, other elements to smooth out issues regarding, with the location that we had. There was a lot of trucks rumbling by, air conditioning noises, things like that we had to smooth out in post-production. We also produced a lot of graphics and sourced several dozen historical still images at this point to help tell the interviewees' stories visually. The editing phase is really where a lot of these decisions get made on how the story is told. Each one's really unique, and you need to have an adequate amount of time put into the editing phase in order to tell it effectively. As we reviewed each interview's raw footage in post-production, we were able to determine a narrative that we wanted to have in that shorter edit. This guided our search for additional historical images. When telling stories that aren't yours, it's probably impossible not to have to go back and dig for more imagery to help provide context for that story. So if the budget allows, really try and set aside some funding to go back and reshoot some relevant locations and get additional footage. Just some general takeaways from this process. While you can anticipate some broader themes you might want to have become part of the finished product with good research and prep, you really don't know what story people are going to provide until you get them in front of the camera. And so it's the interviewers, producers, and directors' job to help guide those conversations to areas of interest or to get additional details as the opportunity presents itself. With multiple subjects, we had a few different ways we could kind of slice the story pie. We could have taken relevant areas, key areas that all these storytellers had in common and put it in a compilation so that lots of people tell the same story on a particular topic. Or what we did is we decided to find topics within each subject's interviews that seemed to really animate them and focus on that when we were working on the edited piece. And so that suite of stories we produced gives several different perspectives on a range of aspects in the social network, social, working, educational, family, and economic lives of mining families in Colorado. And I'm sorry I went through that so fast because we wanted to make sure we were able to show you one of these videos in our presentation today. Do you want to preface, Jerry?
All right, so we're going to talk, we interviewed a person named Jerry Renner. Jerry Renner entered mining in 1975 after serving in the Army and going to college in Trinidad. He worked at the Allen coal mine west of town until the mine closed in the mid-1980s. His brother was also a miner there, and he said that mining was the best job he could have had, full of camaraderie, good work, and good pay. So let's see if we can take a look at the video.
Okay, my name is Jerry Renner. I'm a retired coal miner and lifelong resident of Trinidad, Colorado.
Well,
I was born in Sidney, Nebraska on February 28, 1950. My dad was working at a military installation called the Sioux Army Depot at that time in Sidney, Nebraska. And when I was about 3 or 4 years old, they decided to migrate south back to this area. And I've been in Trinidad ever since. I went to school at the area Trinidad public school system, or Trinidad High School, graduated from Trinidad High School and went to Trinidad State Junior College. Took a lot of auto mechanics, and then I was drafted into the Army in 1970 through 1973, and upon my honorable discharge, I relocated back to Pueblo and went to school. It was called Southern Colorado State College then, so I continued with a lot of mechanics and welding, and when it was getting close to graduating, started applying for jobs. My father-in-law at that time was working at the Allen mine, so I applied there and a few other places, and decided to take the first one that I could get, which was the mine. And they called me, and I started in May of 1975. At that time, when I first started coal mining, 2 years later, my daughter was born. My wife we didn't even entertain thoughts of her going to work. The mine paid well enough for a family to survive. They didn't. There was really no hardships as far as money. The mine paid really well. The best paying job. That's the most fun I ever had was coal mining. But it paid really, really well. My father-in-law went to work, raised 4 children on coal miners' pay. My mother-in-law really never had to go to work until he was injured in the mine. But other than that, during those times, through the 70s and early 80s, the family was pretty much a close knit. It was we were just all looking out for each other, because we knew if we didn't and did our best to make the place safe and work safe, somebody was going to get hurt. You just didn't want to be responsible for an accident. So, but the guys underground was the best friends I think I've had ever is those guys underground. I miss those guys. I was just on a great crew of about 8 guys, and I really miss those guys. Saw them every day for 5 or 6 days a week, 8 hours a day. It was just a great time to be a coal miner for me. It really was, because of our strong union. I don't think I was ever asked to do something that was unsafe. If we thought it was, you bring it to the attention of your shift foreman, and then the union safety committee would come in there, and they would hash it out, and we'd get it fixed. But because of the union and our safety committee, we weren't asked or forced to do something that was just unsafe. We were all coal miners once we went underground. An hour into shift, everybody's kind of full of coal dust. We're just all, coal mine brothers underground, and where you lived or how you spoke or what you said, it really didn't come to play much like it has here recently, the last couple of years. But you have to explain who you are and where you're from. I really thought that I would retire maybe into my 60s as a coal miner, and kind of like I said before, coal mining was arguably the best job I ever had. The pay was good, the benefits were good. I was on a heck of a crew. They were my buddies. I saw them. We were invited to important family functions, weddings, baptisms, high school graduations, just about anything that was important to the crew. Well, the crew was invited to attend, and I truly miss that, and that might be lacking now. But I truly wish the coal mines, and I understand about the environment and things like that, but I truly hope that our government takes action and protects those pensions. And I hope, youngsters, something that you find work where you're just, working 5 days of work is just not an issue, and you have a good salary. Look at your pensions, because one of these days you're going to be retirement age, and plan for that. And we all did as coal miners. We knew that there was going to be a pension when we retired. So I didn't really think much about that until, I was laid off, and I said, well, we're going to have to do something else and prepare for the future. So I hope these youngsters think about that when you get a good paying job. Stay 20 years, get some benefits. Don't count on on something being there if you're 21. It may not be there when you're 65. Who knows where the country's going? So, and join a union. I'm a union member for life. I don't regret any of that.
Okay.